All right, Shabbos, good morning. Let us begin. Begin by thanking our sponsors, to thank our TALMUD TORAH sponsors for the month of Adar Aleph, Paul and Kathy Pollack, for dedicating all the Sherman Drushos this month in memory of Paul's grandparents, Zechariah Ben Zechariah and Dinah Basrab Dov. To thank Art and Sherry Miller for dedicating all the Sherman Drushos this month in memory of Art's brother, Richard Miller, Reuven Ben Betzalel V'Rachel. We hope to the merit of our TALMUD TORAH, the Neshamas will have an Aliyah, and the families Ein Nachama. So with that, let us begin. We are continuing in this incredibly exciting adventure, this journey, in the second parak of Maseches Chagigah. Today's daf is Yud Beis. We are picking up on the bottom of Yud Aleph, Amud Aleph 11b at the two dots. Below the Ma'aseh Bereshis B'Shnayim, which is 2, 4, 6, 7 lines up from the bottom, Daf Yud Aleph Amud Beis. Says the Gemara, below the Ma'aseh Bereshis B'Shnayim. Remember again, the Mishnah said that one is not permitted to learn the story of Ma'aseh Bereshis, what we call the Genesis narrative, with a group of two. Now, both remember again, we saw an interesting machlokes, just to reference this again, between the Mishnah and the Brisa. So the Mishnah seemed to indicate again that groups of two, literally again, is groups of two. Like I can't learn it with a Chavrusa, or maybe like a Rebbe and one Talmud. So the Brisa switched this around and said that the numbers refer to the number of students, don't include the Rebbe. So like Arayas, you don't teach to 3, that's 3 plus a Rebbe. Same logic over here, you wouldn't teach Ma'aseh Bereshis to 2 plus a Rebbe. Says the Gemara, what's the problem with learning Ma'aseh Bereshis, the Genesis narrative, in groups of 2? So the Tan Rabbanan, Kisha Alna Liyamim Rishonim, the pasuk says, when you will speak about the early days. So we darshan from here, Yachid Shoel, Ve'in Shnayim Shoalim. One person could ask, but 2 people cannot ask. 2 people should not ask. Now we'll say, what's, just so you understand the svara, right? What's the logic here? What Chazal were concerned about is as follows, that there are certain things which lend themselves to misinterpretation and misunderstanding. And the problem is that if you misinterpret or you misunderstand, one runs the risk of some significant theological issues. So, for example, I'll just reference back to you, just to give you a good frame of reference with this. Do you remember again, remember Maseches Megillah, and we had the story of Talmi, right? Remember again the Septuagint, where Talmi HaMelech goes ahead and gathers the 70 tzaddikim. And remember, what does he say to them? Kisvuli Toras Moshe Rabchem. Write to me the Torah. Both say, do you remember again the first change they made? Little Daf Yomi Chazara. First change they made? Bereshis bara Elokim. To what? Elokim bara Bereshis. Right? Remember that change? Why did they change Bereshis bara Elokim to Elokim bara Bereshis? Because they were afraid Bereshis bara Elokim sounds like there was a deity called Bereshis. And Bereshis created God. So instead they changed it to Elokim bara Bereshis, God created in the beginning. Shabbos, you already see from that in the story of Ma'aseh Bereshis itself, you see, we because we've been learning it for so many years, like for us, okay, God created this on the first day, this on the second day, this, what's Tov Vavo, what's this, what's that, it lends itself to misinterpretation. So because of that, again, Chazal were concerned, so when you have something that lends itself to misinterpretation, so the best way to avoid that is how? Learn it in small groups. Because this way, again, there's a very small teacher-to-student ratio. You can make sure there's clarity. You can make sure there's no ambiguity. So you begin to see, again, so Arayas has to have a small group. Ma'aseh Bereshis has to have even a smaller group. Because contained within Ma'aseh Bereshis are the very theological underpinnings of Yiddishkeit. The Ribono Shel Olam as a creator. Well, that can't lend itself to any level of misunderstanding. And therefore again, we learn in very small groups. So that's why it says, Ki sha'alna liyamim rishonim, yochid shoel, ve'in shnayim shoalim. One person should ask, i.e. learn in small groups, but large 2 people should not ask. Okay, yachol yishal adam kodem shenivra olam. maybe you'll think that people should spend time investigating that which was here before the world began. Tamalomar lemin hayoma shebara elokim adam ala aretz. We'll say, so the pasuk says, when should you start your investigations, right? When should you start your learning? From the time that man was on this world. In other words, we don't focus ultimately again. We don't focus on what occurred before creation. We only focus on what occurred ultimately again from the time that man came onto this world. Now, if that's the case, if you go with that pasuk, it sounds like, when should our learning regarding creation begin? When should it begin? From the sixth day of creation, because that's when Hashem created man. Maybe I really shouldn't be focusing on anything even before that. So the Gemara says, now the pasuk says you could focus on creation, and you could focus on the beginning of creation from day one of creation. But prior to creation, we don't get into. The Gemara says, you might have thought that a person, I will say this goes back to the verbiage of the Mishnah, you might have thought that a person should ask what's above, what's below. Remember, again, we saw, according to Rashi, malamata still refers to the rakiyas, right? What's in the higher part of the rakiya, what's in the lower part of the rakiya, malifnim, malachor. Let's go with Tosas. Ultimately, again, what was before the world, what's after the world. Tamalomar ulmiktzeh shamayim va'ad kitzeh shamayim. Milam ktzeh shamayim va'ad kitzeh shamayim atasho ve'atasho malamala malamata malafnim malachor. Keep your questions contained to what's right. What's literally, again, from one end of the heavens to the other end of the heavens. In other words, keep questions contained to what's happening in this world. Don't worry about what is happening in the celestial sphere. Don't worry about what is occurring before the world, after the world. We'll say, it's like I said yesterday, it's not that those things aren't important. They are important. They're just not important to my life mission. My life mission. I will say, you know how like a person, I would, in organizations, I can only speak to organizational life, I don't know the business world, but I would assume it's the same thing in the business world. Like in an organization, there's a million things you want to do, right? Oh, great idea, all these great things. And the problem is if you do everything, right? So you end up doing nothing. At a certain point in time, you have to figure out, like, what's mission critical, right? What is mission critical, and what are the things that is really going to focus on? So in life, it's the same way, in general life. What's above, what's below, what's before, what's after, those are important things. It's definitely important. They're not mission critical. I don't need to know what's in the multiple levels of the celestial sphere to be successful in my life mission of maximizing my life. I don't need to know what's before the world, what's after the world, in order to live the most impactful life. I have to focus on the things that allow me to be the best version of me, that allow me to maximize my life. Those are the things I have to focus on. Chazal did not want us getting bogged down with things that are simply not mission critical. Such an incredible yesod. So the Gemara goes right there. Hashta, top of your base. Hashta dinafkalei milimiktzeh shamayim va'ad kitzeh shamayim lemin hayom asher bar lakim adam ala aretz lamali. Well, now that I know that I'm learning all of this out from the pasuk of milimiktzeh shamayim va'ad kitzeh shamayim, why do I need the pasuk of asher bara adam ala aretz? Kid Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar, let's listen to this. Teaches me something different. Teaches me, Adam Harishon min haaretz ad l'rakia. Let's listen to this Gemara. Adam Harishon, right? The first man, Adam, when he was created, he was so tall that he stood from the earth up until the rakia, up until the sky. They're both saying, now you know rakia. I always mention the rakia. I learned this from my children. I joke about this. How sometimes, kids come home from school, wherever they go to school, they come home with like a parsha binder, right? And they bring that to the table, and it's about like a 15-ring loose leaf, and as a parent you have to feign excitement. Oh yes, please go through every single Dvar Torah you've heard since the inception of Klal Yisrael. I'm not falling asleep or anything like this. It's fine. Let's do this. Let's do this. Hey, so actually, I learned this from one of my daughters, which was a beautiful thing. She came home. She translated Rakia as sky divider, and I never heard it before. And the truth is, it's a straight. So it's actually the most accurate definition one could have. It's Rashi's definition. The Rakia we translated as sky, but the truth is the Rakia was really created in order to divide between the Mayim Elyonim and the Mayim Tachtonim, the upper waters and the lower waters. So we call again the Rakia the sky, but it really is a sky divider. So listen to this. So the pasuk says. We learn from the pasuk of that Adam Arishon was literally again measured from the Aretz to the Rakia. Shnei leminayom asher bara Elokim Adam ala Aretz kevan shesara. So what happened? Once Adam Arishon sinned, Hiniach HaKadosh Baruch Hu yadav umiyato. HaKadosh Baruch Hu placed his hand on Adam Arishon and diminished him. But say, hear this, Adam Arishon was created so tall from Shamayim, from Aretz to Shamayim. He sinned, the Ribono Shel Olam diminished him. Shnei Amar, Achar v'kadam sartani v'atashas alai kapecha. So I will say again, he quotes over here the pasuk from Tillim, really focusing on that last phrase, v'atashas alai kapecha. You placed your hand on me. The Gemara understands over here that phrase, you placed your hand on me, refers to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's diminution of Adam. He put his hand on Adam, made him shorter. Amar Yudam Rav. Adam Arishon, misofa olam v'ad sofa olam haya. No, Adam Arishon was so large, he measured from one end of the world to the other end of the world. Shnei Amar, leminayom shebara Elokim Adam al haaretz, u'lemiktzeh shamayim v'ad kitzeh shamayim. So I will say, so again, interestingly enough, again the Gemara quotes the pasuk that Adam was from miktzeh shamayim ad kitzeh shamayim. Literally again, from one end of the world to the other end of the world. Kevan shesarach. Once Adam Rishon sinned, Hiniach HaKadosh Baruch Hu yado alav umiyato. Hashem placed his hand on Adam and he diminished him. Shnei Amar v'atashas alai kapecha. Ihachi kashu krayadadi. I Rabbi say we have two contradictory psukim then. One pasuk teaches me that Adam Rishon measured from the Aretz all the way to Shamayim. The other pasuk indicates to me that Adam Rishon measured from one end of the world to the other end of the world. So which one is it? To which the Gemara says it's not a kasha. Idi v'idi chad shi'urahu. It's one shear. It's the same shear ultimately again from Shamayim to Aretz, or from Aretz to Shamayim, as it is from one end of the world to the other end of the world. Then we'll say, what's the pshat? Right? What does this mean? That Adam Arishon measured from one end of the world to the other end of the world? That Adam Arishon measured from Shamayim all the way to Aretz? And I will say, again, I think the pshat is a simple one. That obviously it's not literal, the size of Adam Arishon. It's a descriptive term really trying to tell us about Adam Arishon's potential. When Adam Arishon was created, he measured from the earth to the heavens. He measured from one end of the world to the other end of the world. Adam Arishon had unlimited potential. Adam Arishon had the ability to be anything, to do anything, to accomplish anything. That's what it means from the earth all the way to the heavens, from one end of the world all the way to the other end of the world. Such was the nature of the potential of Adam Arishon. And I will say, what happened? He sinned. And what happens when he sinned? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? Hiniach yadu alav HaKadosh Baruch Hu took him and diminished him. See, Rabbi saying the greatest byproduct of chait. See, we often think that the greatest byproduct of sin is what? Is onesh. Is punishment. It's not true. You know what's a good part about punishment? There's no good part about punishment. But one of the things about punishment, about onesh, is if you do tshuva, you can go ahead and get rid of the onesh. Right? That's what tshuva is able to do. The most terrible byproduct of sin is a loss of potential. Right? I could have gone ahead and been so much. I could have done so much. And very often, even when we do tshuva is able to go ahead and take away the onesh. Tshuva could even purify us. Sometimes what tshuva can't do is regain your potential. Sometimes potential at the end of the day was something I had as something that is no longer. And that's the Pshat. I will say, what an incredible and overwhelming Gemara. Adam HaRishon was born into this world with unlimited potential. He sinned. If you notice, by the way, the Gemara doesn't make any mention about the Onesh. The Gemara says Hashem took him and diminished him. You're not as tall. You're not as tall. This same potential is not there. You're great. You're incredible. You could do so much. But the catastrophic byproduct, the catastrophic result of sin is not the onesh. It's the loss of all of that incredible potential. So the Gemara goes weiter. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Rav, Asar Dvam Nivru B'Yom Rishon. Both sides, there are 10 things that were created on the first day of creation, the Elohim. So both sides, these really beautiful, beautiful Gemaras. Both sides, I just want to point out, by the way, it's a little bit ironic. We go from the Gemara telling us, you should not learn Maaseh Bereishis in more than groups of 2, right? And that I just want to point out, but it's okay, the Gemara is doing it, we're not doing it, right? So I just want to point out to here, it's also, let's see, we'll go a little bit later. So the Gemara says 10 things were created on the first day of creation, the Elohim. We'll say these are the 10 things created on day 1 of creation. Number 1, Shamayim va'aretz, heaven and earth, Tohu vavohu, right? Now we'll say Tohu vavohu is an interesting, Tohu vavohu is, we call it astonishingly empty, right? So ultimately, again, so tohu, right, is a lashon of astonishment. Vohu is a lashon of emptiness. Arva choshech, light and darkness. Ruach umayim, wind and water. Midas yom umidas laila, the length of day and the length of night. All of these things are created on the first day. On the first day. Shamayim va'aretz, the Siddur Gemara is going to prove this. Shamayim va'aretz dichsiv. So how do we know Cheshbon created Shamayim va'aretz dichsiv? Bereishis bara Elokim es ha-shamayim ve'es ha'aretz. Okay, pretty straightforward. Hashem created Shamayim and Aretz. Next, Tohu vavohu dichsiv va'aretz haisa tohu vavohu. Right, the earth was astonishingly empty. Or va'choshech. So the Gemara says, Choshech dichsiv, the choshech al pnei tehom. Pasuk says that there was darkness on the Tehom. Ar dichsiv, vayomer Elokim yehi ar. Hashem said that to be light. Ruach umayim, where do you see Ruach umayim? Dichsiv, v'ruach Elokim, merachefes al pnei hamayim. Midas hayom umidas laila, length of day, length of night. Dichsiv, vayerev vayvoker, yom echad. It was evening, it was morning, one day. One day. Incredible. But say, the Gemara goes weiter. Tohu, what's tohu? What's tohu? Kav yarok, shemekif es kala olam kulo, shemimeno yotza choshech. So what's interesting? What is the definition of tohu? So apparently tohu, what's the literal translation here, is a green line that goes ahead and circles the entire world from which darkness emanates. So we'll say, begin to see we're stepping into some esoteric realms over here. Right, so Tohu represents this source of darkness. Shnei Amar, Yoshes Choshech Sisro Sivivo Savo. So Vohu, what's Vohu? Elu Avonim Hamifulamos Hamishukaos Bitahom Shemehem Yotze Mayim. Vohu, Rabbi say, literally says the Gemara refers to damp stones which are embedded in the Tehom. The Tehom represents like the depths of the oceans, or the depths of the earth, from which water ushers forth. Shnei Amar, v'nota alav kavto v'avne vohu. Good. V'ar b'yom rishon ivri. So I'll say the Gemara says one of the 10 things that was created on the first day of creation was light. Was light created on day number 1? After all, again, v'haksiv. Vayiten Elosam Elokim Barakia Shamayim Uksiv Ayir Vayvoker Yom Revi. We'll say the luminaries were created on day number 4. Right? So ultimately, again, doesn't it seem that light was created on day number 4, not day number 3? We'll listen to this. Kid, it's such a beautiful Gemara. Kid Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar, Or Shebarak Kodesh Baruch Hu B'Yom Rishon. We'll say there was a different kind of light that was created on the first day. The light that Hashem created on the first day, Adam Tsofe Bo, Misofa Olam Viad Sofo. It will say the light of the first day of creation a person was able to see from one end of the world all the way to the other end of the world. Kevan Shabbos say, so there was a light, the way I think to term this is, it wasn't a light of illumination, it was a light of inspiration, or a light of, a luminescent light of spirituality. a person was able to see literally again from one end of the world to the other end of the world. Once HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw that there was going to be a Dar HaMabel, generation of the flood, and a generation who would build the Tower of Bavel, whose actions were so perverse and corrupt, Amad v'ganzu mehem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu put that light away. So we'll say the light of the first day of creation was removed from this world. Shnei Amar va'imane meresham oram ulami ganzam. So who did HaKadosh Baruch Hu put this light away for? L'tzadikim la'asid lavo. Both say, listen to how beautiful. That light was put away for the tzadikim la'asid lavo. Now both say la'asid lavo always can mean one of two things. It can mean olam haba, like where you go after you die after 120, or it could also mean messianic era. But the point is, the light was removed from this world and put away for the future. Shnei Amar vayar Elokim esa'ar kitov. This is the first day. Hashem saw the light and it was good. The ein tov ela tzadik. And tov means tzadik. Shnei Amar imru tzadik kitov. Kevan shira ar sheganzu letzadikim samach. Ultimately, again, once the arsa that was put aside for the tzadikim, it rejoiced. Shnei Amar or tzadikim yismach. So therefore, I will say, this is the way the Gemara tries to reconcile this. Just to understand the contradiction. The contradiction is, the Gemara just said before, one of the things that Hashem created on the first day was was light. But then when you look, the Torah says that the luminaries were placed in the heavens on day number 4, which sounds like light was created on day number 4. So what's going on over here? To which the Gemara says it's not a contradiction. There was a light that was created on day 1. This magnificent light that you could see from one end of the world to the other end of the world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw what mankind was going to do. He removed it from the world, put it away for future generations. And what we have on day number 4 is what we'll call normal this world light. I want to point out what a overwhelming Gemara. Both say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to shower so much bracha. You see, we often think that life is this struggle for us to extract blessing from God. Like HaKadosh Baruch Hu is this repository of blessing, and we have to pull it out. You don't have to pull it out. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to give it to us more than we could even imagine. Like Chazal said, I've given this mashal many times. The Gemara says, more than the baby wants to nurse from the mother wants to express the milk. Because if she doesn't express the milk, she becomes engorged. It's painful for her. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Gon Shalom, is literally, again, has so much bracha. All he yearns is to shower it upon us. We just have to be fit. We just have to be roi. We just have to be deserving. And the crazy part is that so often there is tons of bracha just waiting to be showered upon us. If only we make ourselves worthy. It's waiting. It's not about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's about us making ourselves into the right kind of kelim, the right kind of utensils that are capable of receiving and retaining this blessing. Look at the light that was put into this world. It was here. Before man was even created, it was here. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was ready to give us that. We'll say, do you know what it means to have light from which you can see from one end of the world to the other end? Do you know what that means? I don't know what it means, but I think what it means is, I will say, a clarity in life. How many of us go through life with clarity? I will say, you ever meet people who have such clarity, they have it all figured out? I've come to learn people who have such clarity, they have no idea what they're talking about. Right? More often than not. They think they've gotten it all figured out. Be very wary. Be very, very, very wary of overly self-assured people who've got it all. Because I will say the truth is, that type of clarity, that's what Das Torah is. That's why we look at Gedolei Yisrael. Yeah, often they have it figured out because Torah informs the way they look at things. But people who are a bit too overly confident in their sense of rightness or their sense of clarity, just be careful. Just be careful. Because we'll say that was the R of the first day. The R of the first day was an R where you were able to see things for what they were. Life made sense. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to give us that light. HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't want us walking around in a fog in this world. He didn't want there being gray. He wanted us to have clarity so that we could live impactful lives. But we weren't deserving of that R. So he took it away. And instead, what do we have? A beautiful sun, a beautiful moon, stars that give us illumination. but don't give us clarity. No one got clarity from the moon. No one gets clarity from the sun. You get illumination. But let's say that's the art. If we're just deserving, if we just make ourselves roi, there's no telling what bracha we could receive. The Gemara goes weiter. So much more to say on this also. We'll say about this Arishon, but we'll have to leave it. Ketanoi. But let's say it's machlokes tanoi. Or shebar HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'yom Rishon Adam tzofa u'mavit b'misofa olam b'yad sofo. So the light that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created on the first day, a person could see from one end of the world to the other end of the world. Divrei Rabbi Yaakov. These words are Rabbi Yaakov. Chacham moment, hein ma'orosh nivra b'yom rishon, v'lo nitlu ad yom ravi. So as it turns out that there is a machlokes in the Genesis narrative. So there's two opinions about this. So remember again, what's the problem? The problem is we don't know how to reconcile the light of day 1 and the light of day 4. Right? Because again, the pasuk says Hashem creates light on day 1, but yet the luminaries are placed in the heavens on day number 4. So again, you have Rabbi Yaakov who says, like we just said before in the Gemara, namely, day 1 was this magnificent, overwhelming light of clarity that was created and removed. Day 4 was light as we presently have it. Chachamim say, no. The light of day 1 was the sun, the moon, and the stars. What happened then on day 4? What happened on day 4? They were put in place. They were created day 1 and put in place on day 4. But I'll just point out, by the way, this position of the Chachamim is actually the position of the Ramban in all of my Sibirishis. The Ramban explains that the way the Genesis narrative occurred was everything was created on day 1. Everything created on day 1. And then what happened over the subsequent days of creation was everything was put in its place. So creation of all the world needs on day 1, and then each day Hashem kind of arranged it in place. Okay? Amrav Zutra Bar Tovia Amrav. Basar Dvar Nivra. These are just incredible Gemaras. So listen to this. Rav Zutra Bar Tovia says the name of Rav. The world was created. Basar Dvar Nivra. Now this is an interesting idea. So we just got finished saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created 10 things on the first day. You're going to see 10 is like the ongoing number over here. So in this Gemara over here, Rav says Hashem created the world almost like with 10 qualities. What are they? Chachma, Svuna, Das, Koach, Gara, Gvur. So let's go through these one at a time. Chachma. Hashem created the world with Chachma. I'm going to draw your attention to Rashi over here. By the way, isn't it interesting that on a daf like this, look how little Rashi there is. Right? Look how little Rashi. It's almost as if Rashi is telling us, by the way, we don't learn Ma'aseh Bereishis, right? I just want to point out, right? We don't learn Ma'aseh Bereishis. So Rashi is mitzam saying, we need Rashi so badly over here. So Rashi says, Chachma, Yodea Mashalamad. So I will say, these are the qualities with which HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. So this Chachma. I will say, what's Chachma? Chachma means the ability to retain that which you have learned. I will say, so, right? Chachma is not an easy thing, because many of us, right, we hear stuff, and then what happens? It's a frustrating thing, right? We hear it, and then it leaves. It comes in, it goes out. Chachma is the ability to retain that which you have learned. Next, the world was created with Tvuna. What's Tvuna? Shehu mevin davar chadash mipilpul chachmasa. I will say, Tvuna is the ability to extrapolate additional wisdom from that which you have learned. So I learned something. Chachma is the ability to retain that which I've learned. Svuna is then the ability to dissect, discern, and extrapolate, analyze from that which I have learned in order to learn new lessons. Next, Das. What's Das? Look at Rashi. Yishuv. I will say this is incredible. Das is the ability to maintain almost like an inner equilibrium. Right? The Yishuv Hadas, what we call Yishuv Hadas. A certain level of calm. There's a better word. Equanimity. Right? I will say equanimity, in other words, a person always maintains a certain level of balance. Das, koach, I will say. So just point out, these first 3 really have to do with your mind. Say, chachma, the ability to go ahead and ingest knowledge. Svuna, both say, because listen to this, remember, you could have knowledge, but if you can't take your knowledge and apply it to life, right, and make it real, then what good is your knowledge? That's tvuna. or Sivuna. Right? Sivuna is the ability to take what I learned, to extrapolate, and then use it to live my life in an impactful way. Right? That's Sivuna. Das, Osai, is equanimity. The ability to be an even-keeled person. Because listen to this. Because remember, if you can't go ahead, like we spoke about this on Shabbos, if you can't go ahead and be an even-keeled person and you panic, right, what happens? What happens when you panic? What happens when you panic? You can't apply any life lessons to your current stressful situation. So you could have chachma and you could have svuna, but if you don't have das, right? If you don't have das, if you don't have equanimity, if you don't know how to keep it together in stressful situations, then no matter how much knowledge you have, it will not inform how you act under stress. Such an incredible yesod. Next is koach. Both say koach, kishmahu, koach is strength. Rashi says, hu koach hazroah. Which according to Rashi literally means what? Physical strength. Physical strength. I will say, why the Chodesh Baruch Hu, and I understand all these, why do you need physical strength? Why do you need physical strength? Don't be afraid to work. Right? Don't be afraid to work. Don't be afraid to push yourself physically hard. Gara. I will say, these are interesting. Rashi says, Gara is Nezifa. Gara literally means, again, almost like rebuke. Right? Rebuke. Gvura also means strength. Tzedek, justice, or I should say, actually, we'll use tzedek over here really to mean tzedakah, like charity or righteousness, mishpat, justice, chesed, kindness, berachamim. So we'll say, now we're going to go through each of these and we're going to see how these traits show up in Bereshis. B'chachma b'suna. So we'll say, how the world was created with chachma and suna. Again, remember, what does chachma mean? Good. Knowledge, right? The ability to ingest knowledge. So chachma, svuna, the ability to go ahead and extrapolate. Shedichsev, Hashem b'chachma yasad aretz. Good pasuk says Hashem created the world with chachma. So the Gemara says Hashem b'chachma yasad aretz. Kohen shmai b'svuna, good. B'das, dichsev, b'daito tehomos nifku. B'chach uvura. So also the Gemara is quoting psukim that again associate each of these midos with Ma'aseh Bereshis. So we'll say obviously, there's a lot more to talk about on each of these things, but we're just going to go through the psukim. Bekoch ubegvura d'chsev so more of a quote to the pasuk. Machin. Sorry, quotes over here from. Let me see the pasuk. Mechin harim bekocho nezar begvura from Tehillim. So the Gemara says begara d'chsev amudei shemayim yirofafu v'yismo megaraso b'tzedek u'mishpat d'chsev tzedek u'mishpat mechon kisacha b'chasev rachamim d'chsev zachar rachamecha Hashem echasadecha ki me'olam hema. So we'll say you see all of these attributes of the Ribbon Shalom associated with creation, and therefore each of these attributes themselves play a major dominant role in the creation of the world. Again, a lot more to talk about over here, but in Mirat Hashem, we'll go back to Armi Hud Amarav. B'shasha Barak Kodesh Baruch Hu Esa Olam. We'll say, listen to this fascinating Gemara. When HaKadosh created the world, Hayamarchi v'holech kishtei pakios shal shesi. So I'll say the imagery here is incredible. If you take a ball of yarn, right, or a ball of thread, and you kind of just throw the ball, right? So what happens? It keeps on going and going and going. Soon there's a little bit of a slope, right? It keeps going and unraveling. When Hashem created the earth just kept on expanding. Ad shegar ba HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Until HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this is why the gara, the nezifa. Until HaKadosh Baruch Hu rebuked the earth and told the earth to stop. Vehemidu shneimar amudi sha'irofafu v'yisma megaraso v'hainu dam reish lakish mai dichsiv ani kel shakai. What does it mean when Hashem says I am kel shakai? What does that word mean? What does that name mean? So the Gemara says anu shamarti ve'olam dai. I am the one who told the world enough. So we'll say the imagery here is quite profound. So Hashem says to the earth, right? Hashem says, let there be land. And the land by itself just keeps naturally expanding. Just keeps naturally moving on until Hashem has to tell the earth, stop. Amrei Shalkish, another dynamic, same dynamic, different direction. Amrei Shalkish, B'shar Shabbat HaKadosh Baruch Hu Es Hayam, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the sea, Hayamarchiv v'holech, Ad Shegar Bo HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The sea expanded, just continuously expanded, and threatened to overtake the entire world until Hashem rebuked it and told it to stop. V'yavash, and it stopped, and allowed for there to be land. Shne'emar goer bayam vayavasheu v'chol hanaros hechrev. So we'll say, isn't this incredible? So the same time that Hashem creates the earth, and the earth on its own, so to speak, just continuously expands until Hashem tells it to stop expanding. Right? Hashem creates the Mayim, Hashem creates the sea. Sea continuously expands up until when Hashem stops it ultimately from expanding. We'll say, so what's the pshat with this? Right? Well, first of all, it can't be understood literally. Why can't it be understood literally? Because again, Mayim, Aretz don't have the ability to act on their own. They don't have das, they don't have free choice. What's the pshat? So we'll say, perhaps the Gemara is teaching us is as follows. You see, what's the problem over here? What's the challenge? What are the challenge that the earth, the land, and the water are having? They're having boundary issues. Boundary issues, right? Where do you stop, right? Where does the earth stop? Where does the water stop? I will say, what's the hardest thing in life? What's the hardest thing in life? Boundary issues. Creating proper boundaries in this world, I will say. What are the proper gidarim? What are the proper boundaries? Right, in other words, and we all struggle with this in different ways, right? Where do I draw my line between what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, what's good, what's not good, what's kadosh, what's tahar? How do I just you see that here, Hakadosh Baruch Hu is giving form to this. That what's the greatest challenge of the human condition while we are here in this world? It's boundaries. See, I will say boundary issues only operate here in this world, right? In Shemayim, there are no boundary issues. In Shemayim, every malach knows where it belongs. And every malach stays in its lane, right? And every malach ultimately, again, knows this is my rakia, this is not my rakia. This is, in this what we'll say, what's the challenge? The whole challenge in life is boundary issues. What's mutter, what's asa, what's appropriate, what shouldn't I do? So the earth can't stop, right? The earth is not literally on a roll. It's rolling out, right? And it wants to overtake everything. Hashem says, stop, you have your boundaries. The sea wants to overtake everything. Hashem says, stop, you have to have your boundaries. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is modeling for us through the heaven and through the earth that life is about creating proper boundaries. And I will say, isn't that the hardest avodah in life? Where do I stop? Because we'll say, you can't live life drawing the line between mutter and asr. Because you know what happens, we all know, because we've all tried this, right? We've all been down this road. When I draw my line exactly between mutter and asr, I will say inevitably what happens? I find myself on the wrong side of the law, right? And on the wrong side of the line. My line has to be moved back. I can't straddle between mutter and asr. I need to move back that boundary. How far to move it back? How many gidarim? How many buffers? How many chumras? What boundary should I create? That's a very personalistic thing. But Lamaisa, the struggle for proper boundaries, is a struggle that is as old as time itself. Incredible. Listen to this Gemara. Beishamai Omrim, Shamayim Nivru Tchila. Right? So we'll say ultimately again, Beishamai says, the heavens were created first. Va'achar kach Nivrei Sa'aretz. Only after the heavens were created was the land created. Shneimar, Bereshis Bar Elokim, Es HaShamayim V'es Haaretz. It's a solid drasha, I must say, very solid drasha. Right? So Beis Shammai says, look, the pasuk says, Hashem created the heavens and the earth. Beis Hillel Omrim, Eretz Nivreis Tchila. No, not true. The earth was created first. V'achar kach Shamayim. And then the heavens were created. Shneimar, B'yom Asos Hashem Elokim, Eretz V'Shamayim. Amar lahem Beis Hillel Beis Shammai. So Beis Hillel says Beis Shammai, it doesn't make sense that Hashem would first create Shamayim and then Aretz. After all, Adam bona aliyah v'achar kach bona bayis. Shneimar habona v'shamayim ma'aliosa v'agudoso al Aretz yasta. So we'll say, listen to this. Beis Hillel says to Beis Shammai, tell me, does someone build the second story of their house before they build the first story? Right? No one does that. So Shamayim, so to speak, is like the second story. It's the upper story of this world. So of course you create this world first, and then you go ahead and create the Shamayim afterwards. Amar Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai says to Beis Hillel, Devrechem, Adam ose shrafra fa'achar kach ose kisei. Tell me. Well, listen to this. This is great. So Beis Shammai says to Beis Hillel, does a person first make the ottoman and then make the chair? Right, like the footrest, right? That's the called right? Ottoman. Right? Does a person make the footrest and then make the chair? No, of course not. You make the chair first and then you make the footrest. This, right? So we'll say, this world is a footrest for ultimately Shamayim. So the Gemara says, "Shene'emar ko amar Hashem hashamayim kisi va'aretz hadom ragli." The Chacham say zeh v'zeh ka'achas. Chachamim say ultimately again they're both right. In other words, or I should say, or they're both wrong. Right? In other words, Shamayim and Aretz were not created consecutively, but rather what? Were created simultaneously. Shene'emar af yodi yas the Aretz v'yemini tafcha Shamayim. Kora ani aleim yamdu yachtov. I v'idach ma yachtov. What does it mean? The other opinions, well, they say yachtov. To the mishtalfi mehadadi. Ultimately, again, that heaven and earth will never separate from each other. I kashu kra adadi. The psukim seem to contradict each other. Amreish Lakish kishenivru bara shamayim va'achakach bara aretz. The truth is, when they were created, Reish Lakish's reconciliation. Reish Lakish is when they were actually created, in the actual creation, Shamayim was created before Aretz. However, Kishenata, when they were actually placed, so to speak, because we'll say this goes back to this motif that things are created and then they're embedded in place. So Reish Lakish suggests as follows: in the creative activity, Shamayim was created before Aretz. But in the placement activity, Nata Aretz v'achakach Nata Shamayim. Ultimately, again, Aretz was placed and then Shamayim was placed. So we'll say, I'll tell you something amazing. I was bothered by this Gemara last night. I didn't get a chance to prepare the daf till late last night. I was looking at this Gemara of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, and this machlokes. What was created first? What was created first? I will say, so again, we have Beis Shammai saying Shamayim was first, then Aretz. Beis Hillel saying Aretz first, then Shamayim. I looked at it. Marsha didn't say anything. Ben Yehuda didn't say anything. Okay, I'm going to admit, I didn't go really any further past that. But Lamaisa bothered me. So I resolved myself just to live with the difficulty, which means I was lazy to look any further. So I come into shul this morning. This is no joke. I come into learn, and I have to give credit. I see my Shvar Hashem davening Psuki de Zimra. He might Baruch Hashem for Maish, because we have one person who davens all Psuki de Zimra, which is fantastic, and Greg. Right? So I see David Schwartz sitting here, learning, doing whatever. And I'll say, Mamish, in the schus of these, so I sit down and remember, it's the Gemara Maseches Eruvin, and Zechariah. Thank God for Zechariah as well. Right, so listen to this. It's Eruvin Daf Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. So I will say, remember again, what do we have in Eruvin Yud Gimel Amud Beis? Sorry. There's a machlokes, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. What's the machlokes of Shammai and Beis Hillel? Do we say Noach lo la'adam shenivra or Noach lo la'adam shelo nivra? Would it have been better for a person to be created or not? They both say it's a machlokes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai says Noach lo la'adam shelo nivra. It would have been better for a person to have never been created. And Beis Hillel says no, chas v'shalom. Noach lo la'adam shenivra. It's good that we were created. They both say it's the same machlokes here. Beis Shammai says Shamayim was created first, because the ideal in the universe is you don't need this world. Noach lo shelo nivra. It would have been better to have never been created. Shamayim is the ikar. Shamayim was created first. Eretz was created as a secondary measure, but the ikar, says Beis Shammai, is Noach lo la'adam shelo nivra, that a person would have never been created. What does Beis Hillel say? Beis Hillel says over here, Eretz nivreis tchila. Why? Noach lo la'adam shenivra. No, it is great to be created, because it's only in this world that you could accomplish something magnificent. It's only in this world, ultimately, again, that life could take on meaning. In Shamayim, you are what you are. Rabbi says it's the same machlokes. The same machlokes in Eruvin, Daf Yud Gimel Amud Beis, is the same machlokes in Chagigah, Daf Yud Beis Amud Aleph. Rabbi say, who's right? So the Gemara Maseches Eruvin says, the Gemara seems to actually indicate that Allah Chalamayse Beis Shammai is right. That Noach lo Adam Shelo Nivra, maybe it would have been better never to have been created. But now that we've been created, maximize this life. Rabbi say, but here, the Gemara Maseches Chagigah quotes an additional opinion. And what's the opinion, Rabbi say? Beis Hillel Omrim, Eretz Nivreis, the Chachamim say, what was Lashon the Chachamim? Zeh v'zeh ka'achos. They were created simultaneously. So I say simultaneously means that, there are for some people for whom it would have been better if they had never been born. And there are other people, ultimately, again, for whom It was the best thing the world was created so that they can be born to accomplish great things. And Rabbi said the shaila is which category we fit into. At the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves a simple, fundamental, yesodistic question. Was it worth it that we were born? Can we justify our existence in this world by being able to say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's so wonderful you created me, because I did my part in making this world a little bit better. See, Rabbosai, I have to justify my creation. Because Beis Shammai wants to say it would have been better that I'd never been born. And you know what my job? My job was is to show Beis Shammai. Excuse me for saying this. To show Beis Shammai, you're wrong. You're Beis Shammai. All the covered, right? You're wrong. You're wrong. It's better that I was born because look at what I accomplished. Look at what I did. But we'll say such an incredible. You have Beis Shammai saying, okay, we have to go on. But we'll say I just want to point out. I'm just going to attribute the lack of visible emotion on your faces to fatigue. And maybe, I don't know, did you brew decaf today or something? We'll say, this is like, we'll say, come on. We'll say, this is like life Gemaras over here. Life Gemaras, in Shemaim, they're arguing about us. Should we have created silver, not created silver? Should this Schwartz have created? This is what they're arguing. They're arguing, is our creation, did we merit creation? Did we merit it? Rabbi say, and Beis Shammai saying, no, shouldn't have created. Beis Hillel saying, yes. And Rabbi say, it is up to us through the way we live our lives to determine who is right. All right, let's go weiter. Says the Gemara. Rabbi say, you have to say, I can only do so much over here, right? Again, you have to let these Gemaras penetrate your neshamas because these are life-altering Gemaras, but they're only life-altering if you let it in. So the Gemara goes weiter. The Gemara says, we left off, good. Shal, we'll say 3 lines are for the bottom. My Shamayim. Amr Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina, Shesham Mayim. Shamayim is a contraction. This is where Hashem placed waters. In other words, Rabbi say, remember this goes back to what we said before, that Shamayim itself is a Shamayim Rakia, a dividing of the upper waters, lower waters. V'masnisa Tana, Eishu Mayim. Shamayim is made up of fire and water. Melamid. Hashem took Eishin Mayim, mixed them together, and from that created Shamayim. Sha'al Rabbi Shas Rabbi Akiva. Let's listen to this Gemara. Rabbi Shas Rabbi Akiva. Kishay Mahalchin Baderech. So let's listen to this. Rabbi Shmuel is walking with Rabbi Akiva. And I will say, you have to understand something. I will say, Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva were both murdered by the Romans. This is Rabbi Shmuel Kohen Gadol, who saw his children executed, who himself was executed. You have to understand. You have to understand who's walking on the street together. Rabbi Shmuel Kohen Gadol, Rabbi Akiva, Shemi Kom Damam, Kishay Mahalchin Baderech. Amrlei. Rabbi Shmuel says, Rabbi Akiva, Ata Sheshimashtas Nachum Ish Gamzu. I'll say it's amazing. Who was Rabbi Akiva's Rabbi? One of his Rebbeim was Nachum Ish Gamzu. I will say, you're talking about people who suffered so much in life. Nachum Ish Gamzu, who lost everything, right? He's called Gamzu. No, I will say, he's actually called, before the Gamzu Latova, he was from a place called Gamzu. That was actually his town. Amazingly enough, he then becomes known as Nachum Ish Gamzu, because the way he responded to everything in life, both good and that which wasn't so good, was Gamzu Latova. So Nachum Ish Gamzu was Rabbi Akiva's Rebbe. Rabbi Akiva is walking with Rabbi Yishmael. And what happens? So listen to this. Rabbi Yishmael says to Rabbi Akiva, Ata sheshimash Nachum Ish Gamzu chav beishana shaydarish kol esen shabatorah. So let's listen to this. Rabbi Akiva learned by his Rabbi Nachum Ish Gamzu for 22 years. 22 years. So Rabbi Yishmael says, you learned by Nachum for 22 years. Tell me, Rabbi Nachum Ish Gamzu used to darshan every S. So I will say the word S is a riboy. It comes to include something. So when it says Esa Shamayim vi Esa Aretz Mahayadarish Bain, what do Nachum darshan with Esa Esa Aretz? Amar le'ilu nemar Shamayim v'Aretz hisi Omer Shamayim Shmuel Shal HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because if it would have just said Shamayim, I would have thought maybe Shamayim is one of the names of God. Ach Shav Shnemar Es HaShamayim vi Esa Aretz. If it would have said Es HaShamayim vi Esa Aretz, Shamayim Mamish, Aretz Mamish. So I'll say it's interesting. Say Nachum darshan Es, comes to teach you that these are not names, right? These are not descriptive names of God, but rather, again, these are actual names of things. Amud Beis, Es ha'aretz lamli, that's Es ha'shamayim. Why do I need Es ha'aretz? Lahakdim shamayim la'aretz. To teach us that what? That shamayim was created ultimately again before aretz. Shabbos say a raya to Beis Hillel. A raya to Beis Hillel. And that they were not created simultaneously, Rashi like the Chachamim. Va'aretz haisa sovavo. The earth was astonishingly empty. Michti Bashamayim ischil v'reisha. Hashem began creation in Shamayim. Maishna dekachashev maisaret. So here's what's interesting. If at the end of the day Hashem began creation with Shamayim in the beginning, why does it then launch into the creation of the earth? Tana Rabbi Shmuel, listen to this. Mashal l'melech basar v'adam. This can be compared to a king, an earthly king. So listen to this. Sha'amar li avadav hashkimu lepischi. Shabbos say what happens? The king says to his servants, I want you all to meet me by the palace early tomorrow morning. Hishkim u'matzah nashim va'anashim. The next morning he finds that women and men came. L'mi mishabeach. To who does the king give special hakaras hatov to? L'mi she'in darko lahashkim v'hishkim. He gives hakaras hatov to the women. Why does he give hakaras hatov to the women? Because it's the derech of men to get up early and to come to the palace. It's not as normal for the women, right? I mean, it might be normal for them to get up early, but now it comes to the king's palace. So who does the monarch have special hakaras hatov to? To the ones who go out of their way. Similarly, the Gemara says Hashem had greater hakaras hatov to the aretz than to the shamayim, because it was natural for shamayim to comply with the word of God, because shamayim is right by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It was less likely for the aretz, which was further removed from God, to comply with the word of God because it was further removed. So therefore Hashem expresses his hakaras hatov, so to speak, to the aretz even before the shamayim. Incredible. Tana Rabbi Yossi Omer, Aylehem labrios, sheraos ve'inan yodos maros. So also this is a pretty amazing Gemara. So ultimately it says Rabbi Yossi, woe to the creations who see and don't realize what they see. Omdos ve'in yodos amahin omdos. They stand and they don't realize upon which they stand. I will say, listen to this impactful and overwhelming Gemara. Listen to this. Haaretz alma omedes. Rabbi will say, what does the earth stand on? Al ha'amudim. The earth stands on pillars. Shne'emar hamargiz eretz mimkoma va'amudeh yispalatzun. Amudim, the pillars, what do they stand? Al hamayim, on water. Shne'emar lerokia aretz al hamayim. Mayim al ha'arim, what does the water stand on? Shabbos said the imagery the Gemara is trying to point over is that everything stands on something else, right? So the earth stands on the pillars. The pillars ultimately stand on the water. What does the water? Mayim al ha'arim. The water, so to speak, stands on the mountain. Shne'emar al harim ya'adu mayim. Harim, what do the mountains stand on? Beruach. Right? They stand on the ruach. Shne'emar ki yotzer harim ubore ruach. Ruach bisa'ara. What does the ruach stand on? The ruach stands, we'll say, sa'ara is like a strong wind. Shne'emar ruach sa'ara osed devaro. Sa'ara, what does the sa'ara stand on? Teluya bizura'o shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I will say the sa'ara, literally again, is suspended by the arm or on the arm of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shne'emar umitachas zura'os olam. The Chum say no. Yud Beis Amudim Omedes. It stands on 12 pillars. Shne'emar Yotzev Gevulos Amim L'mispar B'nei Yisrael. So the Gemara says V'yesh Omrim Zayin Amudim. Others say the world stands on 7 pillars. Shne'emar Chotzva Amudah Shiva. Rabbi Lazar Omer Al Amud Echad. The world stands on 1 pillar. And Rabbi will say, what's the name of the pillar? V'tzadik Shimo. The name of the pillar that sustains that supports the entire world is tzaddik. Shne'emar v'tzaddik yisod olam. I will say, so there's two. There's just so much to say over here. I will say, but I'll just tell you 2 things. First of all, I'll say this statement. Remember how this all started. Rabbi Yossi said, "Woe to the creations who see and don't even realize what they see." I will say that statement by itself is so. Who stand and don't realize upon which they stand. I will say, on a creation level, we see a world. And I will say, do we appreciate what HaKadosh Baruch Hu does for us through this world? right? You go outside and you see a beautiful sun, you see stars, you see seasons, right? But we're so focused, it's too cold, it's too hot, it's too this. Do we see the beautiful world that HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates for us? And do we understand that in every single aspect of that natural world, it's HaMechadish B'tuvo B'chol Yom Tov Min Ma'aseh Bereshis, that creation was not a one-time event, but creation occurs each and every day because HaKadosh Baruch Hu actively wills the natural world and the creation. That's why the Rambam writes that the way to fall in love with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is through nature. Look at the natural world and you will see the greatness of the Creator. So Rabbi Yossi laments and he says, people see, but they don't realize what they're looking at. People stand, but they don't realize what they are standing on. The world is so multifaceted. I will say we're so often focused on what's lacking and what's broken and what's in a state of disrepair that we forget to sometimes just take a step back and say, Ribono Shel Olam, thank you for the incredible multifaceted world that you have created for us. That's lesson 1. I will say lesson 2 is incredible. The Gemara goes through a whole exhaustive process. What does the world stand on? What does the world stand on? Stands on the pillars, which stands on the waters, which stands like Chagigah, which stands on the mountains, which stands on the this, which stands on the that. Hey, this one says this. And then the words, oh, by the way, where does the world stand on? There's only one pillar. Let's see, you know what the one pillar is? The tzaddik. And who's the tzaddik I was saying? Tzaddik is you. Tzaddik is you. The tzaddik is who each of us have the ability to become. And I will say, if we do our job right, the world stands on our shoulders. We have the ability not just simply to be pieces on the chessboard that just move about indiscriminately, but we have the ability that if we really live lives of impact, if we really become Ovdei Hashem, if we really, like we saw before, justify our existence, if we make our mark in this world, then we support the world. Then we could be the tzaddik. Each of us could be the tzaddik Yisod Olam. I could be the person who not only justifies my creation, but I could be the person who helps to do my part to be a pillar which upholds the world. I will say, this is reminiscent of the Gemara. We should stop reminiscing about other Gemaras and just do this Gemara. I will say, but I'll just tell you again, the Gemara says a person, let's go back there. You'll remind me, Saeed, at the Siyum, you're going to remind me about your Beis Yom Beis Chagigah. Rabbi Yehuda, Shtei Rakiim Hein. You got to go back there. There are 2 Rakiyas, right? There are 2 Rakiyas. So the Gemara says, Shneimar, Hein la Hashem Elokecha Shamayim U'Shmei Shamayim. So we'll say, Darshins, there's Shamayim and Shmei Shamayim. Multiple levels to the Rakiyah. Reish Lakish Amar Shiva, there are 7 Rakiyos. Ve'elu Hein. These are the names of the 7 Rakiyos. Vilon, Rakiyah, Shechakim, Zavul, Ma'on, Machon, Aravos. Vilon, Enam Hashamish Klum. So this is great. Vilon doesn't do anything. Right? It's like the other Rakiyas talking about Vilon. Vilon, he does nothing. Right? He does nothing. Right? Now he doesn't do nothing. Rather, Ela Nichnas Shachris V'Yotze Arvis. You know what Vilon is? Vilon. And by the way, I don't know, how do you say shade in modern Hebrew? Vilon, right? It's a Vilon. Right? So it says, listen to this, because what does Vilon do? Vilon is a shade. So Vilon does nothing. In other words, we'll say, you pull it down at night, so it blocks out the sun, and it goes up by day to allow the sun in. So Vilon is just a shade, doesn't do anything else. Okay, that's Vilon. Go to Mechadish B'chol Yom Ma'aseh B'Reish Shene'emar. I'm sorry. Nichnas Shachris Yotze Arvis U'Mechadish B'chol Yom Ma'aseh B'Reish Shene'emar Hanote Kidok Shemayim V'Yismachem K'ol HaSheves. Rakiyah. What's Rakiyah? Shabo Chama U'Levana K'chav Mazol's Kivur. In Rakiyah, that's where the sun, the moon, and the stars are embedded. Shene'emar, as the pasuk says, Vayiten Osam Elokim B'Rakiyah Shamayim. Shechakim. What's Shechakim? Shebo Rechaim Omdos B'tochnos man letzadikim. I will say this is pretty incredible. What happens in Shechakim? Shechakim has millstones. And what happens in those millstones? What grinding are they doing in Shechakim? They're grinding the wheat, or they're grinding whatever it is to make the man for the tzadikim. Okay, obviously metaphoric. Right? Shnei Emar, as the pasuk says, Vayitzav Shechakim imal v'dalsei shamayim pasach v'yam tar leiman le'achol. Zevul. What's in Zevul? I will say, what's in Zevul? Shabo Yerushalayim u'beis hamikdash u'mizbeach bana. I want to make sure we got to this Gemara. We will say, what's in Zevul? Another level of Shai. In Zevul, you have Yerushalayim, the Beis Hamikdash, and a Mizbeach. Rabbi said there's a Yerushalayim Shalmala, celestial Yerushalayim. There's a Beis Hamikdash Shalmala, a Beis Hamikdash in Shamayim, and a Mizbeach. And what's happening there? Umichael hasar hagadol omeid umakriv alav karban. And I will say, Michael, the Malach Michael, is going ahead and offering up karbanos. Shene Emar, Bano Beisi Beis Sivolacha, Machol Meshiftacha Olamim, Uminolam Dikri Shamayim. How do we know that this is called Shamayim? Tichsiv, Habeit Mishamayim Urei, Mizvol Kotchecha V'Tifartecha. Rabbi say, how incredible is it for us to know? We'll have to stop over here for today. But Rabbi say, how heartening is it to know that in Zavul, which is this level of Shamayim, there's a Beis HaMikdash. See, I will say, sometimes we live with the pain of thinking that there is no Beis HaMikdash. I will say, it is heartwarming to know there's no Beis HaMikdash down here, but there is a Beis HaMikdash in the Zavul. There is an active Beis HaMikdash that's being used each and every day in the Zavul. The fact that there is a Beis HaMikdash in this universe, and the Malach Michal is offering up karbanos, gives us a little bit of nechama and a lot of hope that in Eretz Hashem, one day that Beis HaMikdash from the Zvul will come down here to Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh, and here Rabbi Yameinu. Amen. Shkach Chavosai. Amen. Have a great day, everyone. Chevron Zoom, have a great day.